Again, everything was developed around the same time frame. Oh, there it goes. So again, it's about time that gets some new investment. So again, staff does support this fairly straightforward request. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and hopefully the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. Would the applicant like to come up and speak to it? Please state your name, address, and relationship to the project.
Absolutely. My name is Nicholas Brockelmeyer. My address is 166 North Cassidy, Bexley, Ohio. And I am the project architect with OHM Advisors. So I'm here on behalf of Columbus Aesthetics and Plastics, and they are very excited to be a part of the community and looking forward to joining the business community here in Gahanna. So I guess with that, if you have any questions, please, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Before we go to our questions, is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this project? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the agenda and turn it over to the commission for questions. Mr. Soriano.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. I think the staff presentation noted whitewashing of the brick versus a painting. Can you explain just a little bit about what that looks like?
Absolutely. So in lieu of having a painted brick that's got an opaque finish, it's going to be more of a translucent finish. It's still going to have the white character, but some of the red that's on the existing brick is going to show through. So it'll kind of add a little bit more depth to the building, and so it's not going to completely take away the color of the brick that's there currently.
Got it. And thank you. And is the mechanical units on the roof, are they screened with like louvers, or what's the?
Yeah, there's a self-screened louver unit that we're going to use on the mechanical units. You may be familiar with it. It's called Cityscape. And they have various designs, but the design that we show is like a downward bladed louver that's roughly 6 inches, and that'll be repeated all the way up the unit.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll ask, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for approval on DR 0020-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Wessler. Do I have a second?
Second, Soriano.
Second by Mr. Soriano. Any discussion or comments? I'll just make one quick comment. I used to own a restaurant right across the street. Very familiar with the building. Been there 5 times a day for 10 years. The Penzone girls were very good about ordering food. And it's a great building. It's a nice building. It's a good location, and I think this is it was kind of sad to see it empty for a couple of years, and I think this is a great use for this building, and we certainly look forward to having this tenant and this type of use in Gahanna and at this location. So I think it's a win-win. I'll certainly be in support.
Thank you.
And with that, clerk, can we please call the roll?
Westner,
Yes.
Siriano,
Yes.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Mako,
Yes.
Shapaka,
Yes.
Tamarkin.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Our next application is DR-0021-2022 to consider a design review application for landscaping and exterior painting for property located at 306 West Johnstown Road, parcel ID 025-002990 and 025-002810. Current zoning MFRD, Gahanna Manor. Steve Steinglitz is the applicant. Mr. Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This property is located within the MFRD, which is multifamily residential zoning category. It's located on the north side of West Johnstown Road, just south of 62. Some of those adjacent properties, they're similarly zoned and developed. There's multifamily under construction in that area as we speak. The design review request, fairly straightforward. They would like to paint the existing buildings 3 different colors. The trim will be painted. There's various shades of what I would call gray. We'll show that here shortly. The trim will be repainted white, and then the doors and railings are black. Here is the image of the existing buildings. Again, a sort of natural, kind of typical colored brick. Here are the 3 different colors of that they want to paint there: Dorian gray, infusion, and drift of mist. Inspiring color names. And here's another image of what that would look like there on site. There's 24 different buildings. They did provide a nice site plan here that shows just which buildings will be painted, what colors. As I maybe left out of our last application, but I'll cover maybe a little bit more appropriately in this one is that pretty much regardless of what zoning category you're in, we don't have specific color standards, so we don't require certain colors, shades of colors, and that we have language in our code that says harmonious with other color palettes. Certainly, we've seen these types of gray repainting in the area, and this is the apartment complex that's under construction, just basically across the street from them. This is the Everett. This went through the approval process a year or 2 ago. Again, under construction, it does have sort of a similar color palette, obviously different materials. This is another apartment complex that's across the street. Again, just to give you a little bit of a context as to what's out there and what's under construction. This is Villanova Apartments as well. Design review criteria, again, is it compatible? Does it contribute to the economic vitality? Is it an improvement? Certainly, with some of these buildings, seeing new investment is great. We want to encourage that. And again, we don't have specifics on what types of color palettes should be out there. Staff, we do recommend approval of the request. Again, it's similar to some other approvals. There was a project just across the street that we showed. There was other projects, one very similar, maybe age and look as to this apartment complex in Old Gahanna that was painted a similar gray color. We do kind of recommend, if we looked at that maybe the shutters would be maybe a little bit more appropriate if they were painted a darker color. Caviar, I think, was a color used in the application, just to give a little bit more, have those shutters pop out a little bit. As you can see, they kind of blend in with the rest of they're painted the same as the brick. So typically, we do see a little bit of change with the shutters, and I think we see that. Oh, we don't have shutters on the other one. Oh, yeah, we do. Sorry, the lag here, but you can see sort of around the windows, the trim being white, standing out a little bit from the main color. So a small recommendation there from staff. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. Would the applicant like to speak? Again, please state your name, address, and relationship to the project.
Stieglitz, 536 South Wall Street, Columbus, Ohio. Owner agent.
I'm Joe Hain, 503 Tristan Court, and I am with CertaPro Painters. We'll be doing the painting.
Okay. Comments? Anything you'd like to tell us that we don't already know?
One quick comment was because of the rendering, we colored I did the actual color rendering on this. We colored the shutters because we're actually removing all the shutters. They're not going to be there. So they won't be an accent piece anyway. So we colored them so that you didn't see them.
Didn't work. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this project? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting and turn it over to the commission for questions. Mr. Greenberg.
Just a question, not really about the painting, but is there going to be any plans for landscaping around each of the buildings?
Sure. So landscaping is another part of the project that we're currently working on. In the front or street facing Johnstown, we do plan to do some additional landscaping and additional tree planting to enhance the curb appeal. And we're currently working on removing some of the trees, but we're currently in the process of getting a tree survey so then we could come back to council to speak with you about a more comprehensive landscape proposal.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Seeing no other questions from the commission, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of DR-0021-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Greenberg. Do I have a second?
Second, Chappaqua.
Second by Mr. Chappaqua. Any discussion?
Mr.
Soriano.
Chair, I'll be in favor of the design review. I think the paint and color modifications, I think, are generally improvements of the development. And I think we'll make it, nice and consistent across the project. So I'm in favor.
Very good. And I'm going to agree with Mr. Soriano. Certainly, anytime we enhance and upgrade an existing piece of property in the community is good for everybody. It looks good. Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Greenberg,
Yes.
Chappaqua,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Mako,
Yes.
Seriano,
Yes.
Tomarkin,
Yes.
Wester.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We look forward to seeing you again with the landscaping, and we look forward to seeing the buildings painted. Next, we're going to move on to the Sheets project. I'm going to read all the applications into the record, including the new additions on the sign variances, and then we will turn it over for presentation. So first, we have CU-009-2022 to consider a conditional use application for property located on Johnstown and Morse Road, parcel ID 025-011244, 025-011243, and 025-011226. Current zoning NC, Sheets Gahanna, Sarah Gold applicant. We have FDP-009-2022 to consider a final development plan application for property located on Johnstown and Morse Roads, parcel ID 025-011244, 025-011243, and 025-011226. Current zoning NC, Sheets Gahanna, Sarah Gold applicant. And we have DR-0019-2022 to consider the design review application for property located on Johnstown and Morse Roads, parcel ID 025-011244, 025-011243, and 025-011226. Current zoning NC, Sheets Gahanna, Sarah Gold applicant. And we have V-0033-2022 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1167.18 C1 screening requirements and 1163.08 interior landscaping requirements of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna for property located on Johnstown and Morse Road, parcel ID 025-011244, 025-011243, and 025-011226. Current zoning NC, Sheets Gahanna, Sarah Gold applicant. Then we have the sign variances to section 1165.08A, section 1165.08B6. We have sign code B.1, B.2, sign code C.1, C.2, sign code D.1, sign code D.2, and sign code D.3. And with all that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Blackford for a presentation.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chair. Property is zoned neighborhood commercial. It's surrounded by neighborhood commercial, Morse Road to the north, City of Columbus to the north of Morse Road. You do see some of this, it doesn't show up quite as well on the screen, but you see some more of a neutral color tans here. That is Jefferson Township. There are a variety of zonings in this area of the city. Probably looks really familiar to Planning Commission. So we did see a rezoning just to the west of this for multi-family. That's What I wanted to show you here was some of the recent approvals and some of the development out there, because there is a variety of development just to the east of this site, adjacent to it. We saw the High Bank Distillery here, and you see what the approval of that looked like. Just to the west of the site is the Goddard School, more traditional brick building there. And then Story Point is just to the west of the Goddard School. Again, gives you a little idea of the uses and the architectural feel of that area. Getting into the applications, 4 applications as you stated. No rezoning is required to allow a service station, a gas station, and a food service place, but it does require a conditional use within the neighborhood commercial zoning category. The land use plan in this area is community commercial. We don't see that designation a whole bunch. It does promote medium to large scale uses. It also talks about uses in the area that would be more of a regional community draw. Certainly gas stations are that. You do get folks who, not just Gahanna that frequent gas stations. It does encourage a mix of uses and interconnectivity. Morse Road and Johnstown Road does have walking paths, sidewalks already there. And as we just looked at, there is a variety of uses. Just over 4 acres, which is a very large parcel for a gas station. You'll see when you look at the site plan, we'll look at it momentarily, you'll see that there's a considerable amount of undeveloped areas, green space out there. It is three parcels. They are going to combine those, and it does have frontage, again, on Morris and Johnstown Road. The actual building is just over 6,000 square feet. It's set back quite a bit from both roadways. Again, being a little bit of a larger parcel, there's a nice setback there, 240 feet from Morse Road, 180 feet from Johnstown Road. The canopy has 16 fueling stations. That's set back, that's a little bit closer to Morse Road, but it's still set back 130 feet. They do have more parking than what the code requires. Code requires a fairly healthy amount, 34, but they are providing 43. There's a large amount of landscaping associated with this request. A lot of it's along the perimeter, a little bit on the northeast side of the site, quite a bit on the southern side. We'll look at the landscape plan here shortly. Lighting, there is a considerable amount of lighting like you typically see within gas stations. The nice thing is they provided some great plans in their photometric plan. It does meet code as far as what that light level is at the property line, which is 1 foot candle. They do meet that requirement. So although there is a considerable amount of lighting, it's all sort of contained on site. No variances for that. The building design, the facade is modular gray brick veneer. The awnings are bronze with canvas. I guess this does meet the typical Sheets building. Dark bronze trim. It does meet all the requirements of the design review code. Like we talked about with the previous applications, we really don't have a lot of color material standards in some of our commercially zoned districts. Here's their site plan that was submitted. Again, Morse Road is on the left-hand side. Right-hand side is Johnstown Road. Again, what was submitted, a considerable amount of landscaping here on site along the top of the screen, which is east. This would be adjacent to where High Bank and Donato's is. Landscaping again in that northeast corner. You can see there's not a bunch of landscaping within the parking lot area. That's one of their variances. Kind of makes sense, in my opinion, in this case, to put it throughout the site here. Again, it does screen quite well, the use and the activity on site from Johnstown Road. There is an abundance of landscaping provided, which I believe well exceeded the minimum code requirements. Here is the building design. Again, it's that brick veneer. It's fairly similar in appearance to what we saw with the Goddard School and the senior living facility to the west. Various elevations, and this is does have double frontages, so it's architecturally finished on all 4 sides, which is nice. The gas canopy design Here's that photometric plan. Again, it does meet code requirements. You can see the intensity of light around the fueling stations and around the building. But being this large parcel, it does, again, meet the minimum code requirements. All right, a lot of variances to cover. Two of them are related to the site plan. The first is the dumpster location. So our code, we just saw this last week with a request. Our code says that the dumpster has to be located to the rear of the building. But in this case, with a frontage to the north of the site and a frontage to the south of the site, technically this property does not have a rear yard by our zoning code, so they can't place the dumpster meeting the technical requirements of the code. It is located about 60 feet from Johnstown Road. As we saw, there's a lot of screening, natural screening they're going to be providing with the landscaping, but it will have a fence and vegetation around it as well. So in staff's opinion, we don't have any objection to this variance. Very well screened, even though it's not to the rear of the building. The required amount of interior landscape area, I think we saw this variance last week as well. 5% of the area, which it equates to 37 trees. 11 trees will be planted within that parking lot area, but they're proposing 86 new trees. So again, they're well exceeding what the code requirements are for landscaping. It's just going to be dispersed throughout the site a little bit more evenly and not just clustered in the parking area. So technically, that does require a variance. We do see this variance fairly frequently. Like I said, saw it last week. Again, more than meets the code requirement. Here is the dumpster location. Again, technically they can't locate it meeting code requirements, but it does look to be located in a way to certainly minimize any impacts, visual impacts to any surrounding properties. Signage, a lot of signage requests. I know Planning Commission typically doesn't see signage unless there are variances that are required. All in all on here, I think it's about like 220 or so square feet of signage that they're asking for. We really see a lot of signage with gas stations and fast food. There's drive-throughs, those drive-through menu boards, the overhead signs. From a zoning code standpoint, all those are signs, so all those have to be looked at as individual signs, and we'll go through those here briefly. But here is their ground sign, under 35 square feet, 6.5 feet in height. There in the red circles, those are those approximate locations of the signs. Wall signs, again, we're not technically approving the design, but you will be approving, if you approve the variances, sort of the number and the size, but not necessarily the style. And really looking at this particular rendering here, the signs are fairly, they're not overly large signs and overly intrusive that we see in some areas and on some roadways. So even though there's a lot, they're pretty modestly sized. And one more sign, but it's not showing up, so I'm going to skip that. Drive-through signs, again, there's a number of them, but they're very typical to what we see in and around the city and elsewhere. The order here, drive-through, those are all technically signed, so it does add up into that 220 square feet of signage. Fueling information signs as well. I think these are classified as projecting signs, and the code limits that to 1, so that's part of the variance request as well. Well, let's do a deep dive into all 7 of these sign variances here. The first one is, again, that the code, pretty much for any commercial zoning district, 150 square feet, total sign area is permitted. 225 is what's proposed. With double frontage and with the commercial use, when looking at this compared to maybe some similar uses with gas stations or fast food places, this is a little bit less signage than what some other folks have requested. I think we saw maybe the Burger King a year ago or so, and they had a considerably more amount of signage and only one frontage. So no objection from staff with the 222 square feet. The code also says there's 1 ground sign per street frontage. Typically, when we talk about ground signs, it's that large sign that sits out by the roadway. But in this case, all those, not all of them, but several of the signs that you see in the drive-through are classified as ground signs. So again, the code does limit the number of ground signs, but those aren't the type of ground signs that are really visible from the right-of-way. They're more internal, well, they're not more, they are absolutely internal facing signs that are only really visible to folks in the drive-through or in the canopy area of the gas station. Again, 2 projecting signs, that was the canopy projecting sign when you're underneath the canopy of the gas stations. Sign C1 and C2, that is the signs that staff does have some objection to and some concern. That would be to allow the reduced 5-foot setback for that 33 square foot sign that we looked at moments ago. Here, those 2, again, they're requesting a 5-foot setback from the right-of-way. The code requires 10 feet. It also requires 50 square feet of landscaping. Staff does have some concerns with this variance, and it really has to do with safety. As we've talked about with some other applications recently, whether it was the High Bank improvements just to the east or the Morse Road rezoning for the multifamily. This is a corridor that's experiencing increased traffic, largely from other projects outside of Gahanna to the east and north of us. Anytime that there's increased traffic, there's a possibility of additional right-of-way at some point in time being necessary. And again, just really, we don't want to have any safety issues where folks are trying to, turn out of a project at those peak hour times and then have any type of obstruction related to signage. So staff, we don't typically see that reduced setback. I think we have seen that once or twice before on roadways with less vehicular traffic and already a large amount of right-of-way. So we do have some concerns, and we would be opposed to granting that reduced setback. 3 more sign variances to cover. We're not done yet. Again, the clearance bar, again, that's sort of the drive-through. In this case, I believe it's 8 feet in height that it's allowed to be, and they're requesting 18 feet in height. And they are providing 18 square feet of landscaping. The code says 50 square feet, but again, that's really meant for those large signs that are out on the roadway, that 33 square foot sign, not for these small ones within a drive-through area. It doesn't really make sense to have that amount of landscaping. So again, no objections from staff there. The second to last variance here, another similar one. This is the order point ground sign. I guess that's where you're ordering food. Again, similar with the landscaping, reducing that from 50 square feet to 18 square feet, and the height in this case is 13 feet instead of 8. And again, these are all internal facing signs. I don't know of any reason why this would be a safety issue or be, overly obtrusive. And the last one, again, another landscaping here to have that down to 18 square feet as opposed to 50 square feet for the menu board. All right. The criteria to approve or deny a design review application. Well, we've covered it in the previous 2 applications. I'll do it one more time here. Compatibility with existing structures. We kind of looked at some of those adjacent surrounding structures. It is a very similar material and colors in staff's opinion. Would it be an improvement to the design of the district? Does it contribute to the economic community vitality of the district? I will say that since I've been with the city, this property and some of the adjacent properties have been available and marketed, and it has been a challenge for 8+ years to get users in this area. So staff does feel that this request would contribute to the economic community vitality. Final development plan. Does the plan meet the applicable development standards? It does, except for the variances. And again, only 2 of those variances are to the actual site plan. Most of them are signage. Is it in accord with appropriate plans for the area? Again, the land use plan calls for this area to be community commercial, which is located on major thoroughfares such as Morse Road. It does call for commercial uses and uses that are more of a citywide or regional draw, which gas stations tend to be. Would it have undesirable effects on the area? Is it consistent with the land use character of the area? Conditional use criteria to approve or deny. Is it a conditional use of the zoning district? Well, there's 2 conditional uses, the gas station and then the drive-through for the food service. Those are conditional uses of the zoning, otherwise we wouldn't have a conditional use application. Is the development in accord with appropriate plans in the area? Again, the land use plan does call for these types of activities in the area. Would it have undesirable effects? Is it in keeping with the existing land use character? And then the 3 criteria to approve for variances: special circumstances or conditions applying to the land or building. Is the variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights? Would the granting of the application be detrimental to the public welfare? Again, staff did have the one concern with the 5-foot reduction for the signs on those busy roadways. We do believe that there are special circumstances with the land. Again, technically with the dumpster, it can't be located on the property regardless of the use meeting code. So again, in staff's opinion, certainly some of these, there are special circumstances. We do support all the applications, the design review, the conditional use, final development plan in 8 of the 9 variance applications. I think we covered all the reasons why. And so with that, I will end the 27-slide presentation and turn it over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. Would the applicant like to comment? Again, please, Mr. Blackford.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. There is one thing to note. I know the applicant's about to come up here. They did provide some new materials to Madam Clerk and myself yesterday. We don't normally take in additional materials after an application has been advertised and already published. Certainly, I'm not able to do any type of review, and nor were other staff members. So if there are some additional information they want to provide, I'll do my best to try to cover what may be staff input on that. But again, we haven't had an opportunity to review, and it's really up to Planning Commission if they want to, entertain any new materials that the applicant might want to discuss tonight. So my apologies, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Applicants, will turn it over to you again. Please state name, address, and relationship to the project.
Hi, Drew Miller, 4270 Morris Road. I'm with Skogan Gold. Sarah Gold was the applicant. I work with Sarah. She just had a baby a couple weeks ago, so she's at home. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Mr. Chair, thanks everybody for your time tonight. We do not have, I do not have any additional information to share. There was a slight confusion just between what we had submitted. We received comments back on our engineering plans, and we merely addressed those comments and just complied with them. And so we resubmitted those to Mr. Blackwell. So I have a team of engineers with me here tonight, so we're ready to address any of your comments or concerns. I did want to make one comment about the ground sign, C.1 and C.2, especially on Morris Road. So the right-of-way sits back about 45 feet from the curb of Morris Road. And that entrance and egress of the site right there is right in, right out. So while I appreciate the concern for safety, I don't believe that would cause any issues for folks who were exiting the site to have visibility to traffic moving west to east. So we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we go to the commission, was there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? I do have one speaker slip, so we'll turn it over to Patricia Kovacs.
She needs sworn in.
And we do need to swear you in. And let me ask, is there anyone else from the public going to speak on this? Okay. So we can have you, Mr. Roth, swear you in?
What do I need to do to swear in?
Yep.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state I do.
I do.
Thank you.
And again, if you can state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name's Patricia Kovacs, and I live at 527 Havisham Drive. And I'm just speaking because I'm concerned about the sheets, and I'm sorry, I worked till 7, so I just got here and I didn't hear the whole presentation, but I looked at the things online. I'm concerned about having that there because it's multifamily and residential. I know there's a few businesses here on the corner, restaurants and stuff, but a gas station's a totally different beast. There's a Sheetz that was just built on Johnstown and Stigler. I ride bicycles, and the traffic there got so much higher from that Sheetz because I think their gas is cheaper than most places. So I'm just concerned about the traffic that's going to be brought to that. And I have never really, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really see that many gas stations by roundabouts. So I'm really concerned about people trying to pull in and out of that thing and the roundabouts being there. So the other thing, I know there's also Sheetz up at 161 in Hamilton, which I just rode my bike to this weekend. They put in a lot of side paths, so I guess if this thing does go in, I hope there'll be a lot of ways for people to walk and bike there. And that's my, I just don't think it's a good location for a gas station. I don't really have any questions, but that's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for your opinion.
Okay.
Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the agenda and turn it over to the commission for questions. Mr. Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions. I guess the first one is, has there been a traffic study done for this new Sheetz?
There has, yes. We have our traffic engineer here with us tonight.
Well, could he answer questions about what the traffic study recommended
Sure.
or any changes that were necessary to Johnstown or Morse Road?
Hi, Drew Laurent with Carpenter Marty Transportation out of Columbus, Ohio, 6612 Single Tree Drive. The traffic study was done and approved by Gahanna and Columbus. The improvements associated with the Sheetz are a left turn lane for the Johnstown Road access, and then a signal installation at Morse Road and Albany Chase Drive. That's the full access point just west of the site. So there's cross access between the Stony Brook property, the Goddard School, and the Sheetz development, all of which will have access to the signal. And those were the improvements that were required and recommended as a part of the study.
Thank you.
Sure.
I guess, do we want to just keep, I have other questions, but I think you'd want to, if there's questions for the traffic study, we should continue on that.
Okay, any traffic study comments?
That brings up a question to me. Is there still direct access from the site to Morse Road?
Yes,
Or-
there's an existing right-in, right-out access right where the cursor is pointed, which is obviously only allows right-in and right-out movements. So if you're heading westbound on Morse, you'll need to use the signal to turn left into the site. And then there's the access to Johnstown Road as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I think I'm a little, maybe I'm confused. Is there a site plan that shows the relationship of the curb cuts to the streets and turn lanes?
Do you guys have a site plan? Or, yeah.
I did not see it.
Yeah, that one's not showing the left turn lane on Johnstown Road, but there's existing width there. There may be some minor widening necessary, but there's essentially just north, or I guess, yeah, northeast of the existing access point is a 3-lane section, which tapers back down to a 2-lane section south of the drive. So there may be some minor widening necessary, maybe a few feet here or there, but it's mostly restriping for that left turn lane.
And then where is the signal location?
If we could pull up the aerial again, it might be easier to see that. It's at the intersection of Morse Road, and the north leg is called Albany Chase Drive. I don't think the south leg has a name. It's that location right there.
To the left, off the side in front.
And the analysis in our study basically showed that obviously left turns onto Morse Road during peak hours are pretty difficult, as we all experience. I drive through here 4 times a day, so basically you have to fulfill a state and federal warrant to install a signal, you have to have enough traffic on the main line and enough traffic generated on the side street to warrant signalization, which this does. So that was a part of the recommendations in the study.
So is there direct access from this parcel to Morse Road outside of following that cursor, doglegging around to the signal?
So do you see the service road where the cursor is there?
Yes.
That's cross-access connectivity through there.
But there's no northbound access to Morse Road at that point?
There is. It's existing there today. It's not shown on the aerial, but there's a right-in, right-out access. I think just about where that cursor is right there, which will connect into the site and is currently connected to the other two developments as well.
And that will continue to be right in, right out?
Correct.
And is there any concern about queuing during peak hours, backing up all the way to the roundabout with that signal?
No, not in our analysis in the opening year or the 10-year horizon. This signal is, it's going to heavily favor Morse Road traffic. So you're going to get a lot of green time on Morse Road with occasional breaks, with stopping traffic to let people out via both developments, north and south.
That's a full access signal?
Correct.
And what does that mean?
That means it'll be under signalized control and all movements will be permitted, so you can turn left.
How many movements are there?
Left, right, and through.
If I'm going eastbound on Morris Road, how many movements?
How many movements? I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, if I'm going eastbound on Morris Road and I come to that signal, will a left turn be permitted?
Yes.
By arrow?
I do not believe so. I don't know the answer to that question. I'd have to look into it. It depends on what the analysis calls for, but it meets acceptable level of service as a signal. Yes.
There will be, I heard a left turn access lane. Did I have that right?
Yeah, there are existing left turn lanes there now. Morse Road is a 3-lane section with a 2-way left turn lane, so there'll be dedicated left turn lanes for the signal in both directions.
If I'm going westbound on Morris Road, how many movements do I run into?
Just one. You can turn left at the signal and access the Sheets or the Goddard or the Stony Brook development.
I think this is new enough information that I'd like to see some kind of write-up or an analysis by our city engineer with regards to that.
This is not new information, and we have an approved traffic study by Gahanna and Columbus.
By new information, I'm referring to the document I have that I received Thursday or Friday of last week that preps me for this meeting. A full access signal is a complete surprise to me. I can't speak for the other members here.
First I've heard.
But that was one of the considerations I had as we went into this, is the overall traffic in that area, the impact on Johnstown Road.
I want to iterate too that, gas stations in general, along with Sheets developments, generate a lot of what's called pass-by traffic. Approximately, by national data, 2/3 of the cars that'll come from this site are going to be people that are already on Morse Road or already on Johnstown Road. So it doesn't necessarily bring more traffic to the area as much as it attracts existing traffic on both of those roadways.
At one time, that roundabout was one of the most troublesome in the United States. Okay?
A long history of that roundabout, I sure
And
do.
there's a lot of people that have studied that roundabout and why.
Started out as a 2x2, and now it's a single 1x1 with right turn lanes. They had to do that as mitigation for safety. And this was one of the first roundabouts in central Ohio, too, so it's
Right.
very new at the time.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Blackford, and maybe our mayor? So the signal is your recommendation or recommendation of the traffic study? Is it done? Is it going to happen? Or what's the process to get a signal?
Yeah, the process is it's engineering, plan, review, and study, and if it's required, it's going to happen as part of the construction of this project. It's not up, Planning Commission doesn't have the authority to waive engineering requirements in that. So it's separate but related to what we're here tonight. So I know that's confusing, but that's,
But it's also not a done deal that it's 100% going to happen.
if it's required, yeah, I don't think they're electing to do it. They have to do it as part of the construction of the project. So if the project happens, it's going to have, the signalization of that intersection will happen.
Would happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's not an elective, it's a requirement as part of the construction of the project. It's an off-site improvement. That's why it's not subject and not part of the Planning Commission process typically.
Mr. Blackford, Greenberg?
I'm Greenberg, he's
He's
Blackford.
different, Michaels.
There you go. Question on if it's part of the construction project, then Sheets is paying for the light and lanes and everything that's needed to make this happen?
To the best of my knowledge, that is correct. But again, that's not 100% of my purview, but that's typically if it's the project that's generating the need pays for the improvement.
Okay, thank you. Can I go on with my others, or is there
Any more
anybody else?
Traffic questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Mako?
I have one. So I'm looking at sheet D, as in David, T, Tom, -1. And as Mr. Wester said, the information that we got is kind of conflicting with what we're talking about. That plan that I'm looking at here, which is the drive-through sign, looks like there is an access that's going to go over to the commercial business to the right. In lieu of, well, in addition to the exit to Morris Road. Is that still in this planning? Because the landscaping plan looked like it chopped that off, but is that being a good neighbor and you're putting an access over there?
There is no cross-access proposed to the east where the Donatos and High Bank is.
Right.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that's what,
Yeah. Yep,
the plan I'm looking at shows that there is a road there.
gotcha. I think this is the current, is this the current one? Yeah.
So, yeah, that was showing the conflicting information that we received.
Mr. Mako?
Right, excuse me. So getting back to the existing right in, right out there at Morse Road, so no concerns about the right out in proximity to the roundabout?
No, I mean, it's existing today. People use it today. It's connected to the existing developments, though it is a little further away from the full access there. I mean, it's a stop-controlled condition. It's like turning right on red. You go when there's a gap in traffic, things like that. So no capacity issues as far as the analysis goes.
Okay, so no real safety concerns there. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bike path, is that on the north side of Morris Road?
The shared use path, I believe, is on the north side of Morse Road, and then a sidewalk on the south.
So we're not conflicting at all with what we're doing with your right in, right out?
Nope.
Kinda.
And I will say, too, that the signal will be required to have crosswalks to cross Morse Road as a part of the design process, so pedestrians will have safe access to cross Morse Road in addition to the roundabout.
So one more traffic question.
Sure.
Are you guys anticipating more people from Morris Road to enter or to Johnstown?
The majority of traffic is coming to and from Morse Road. I could see if I have the exact percentages that were used in the study. But essentially, actually, I do remember, it was about 25% from the west, 25% from the east, and in addition to Johnstown Road North was about 15 to 20. It was fairly balanced, but there's more traffic on Morse Road.
On Morse
certainly.
Road?
Yeah.
That's going to come to play on my signing setback. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Greenberg?
So we're done with the traffic stuff, I guess. All
I
right.
think we're good with the traffic. Moving
Okay,
on.
so in the drawing, there's it seems like an existing retention pond. If somebody can answer questions about that.
Yeah,
our engineer, our civil engineers here as well.
Okay,
tonight.
so that's an existing retention pond, or is that something that you're putting in?
There's an existing detention.
And, you know, gas stations are pretty much all asphalt, and there's going to be lots of runoff. Obviously, I would think there's been calculations to ensure that a significant flood event or storm event can be handled by that one drainage area? Is
Yeah.
that, and is all the drainage go towards that?
That's correct. Andrew, can you explain that a little bit?
Andrew Gardner with V3 Companies, civil engineer for Skilkin and Sheets on this project. Yeah, the detention basin is existing. It was put in as part of a master plan for this parcel. We are taking all of our drainage and our flood routing to it. It then connects into a public storm sewer in Johnstown Road. It is sized and designed to meet the City of Gahanna's stormwater management standards and requirements. I don't recall if we're doing a little bit of tweaking to the grading to clean it up a little bit. It looks a little rough at the moment, and I think we'll probably clean it up. But as far as the volume capacity, water quality capacity, those types of things, it is sized for the site and is sufficient.
Okay, thank you. I had another question about, you know, the site is near a school. And what are the requirements for Sheets as far as fire issues? You know, somebody drives off with a cap and it blows up, I don't know. But I assume you have a lot of requirements that you have to comply with for fire and hazardous spills, anything along those lines?
Good evening. My name is David Bruckelmeyer. Address is 630 Morrison Road, Suite 150, Gahanna, Ohio. I'm with Sheets, and thanks for having us here tonight. A little bit of information about what we have for fire safety. We do, first off, have emergency stops located in appropriate locations around the site. Hey, if there's a fuel emergency, something's going on at the pump, you hit the button, it shuts off. That's a national fire code safety requirement. So we have that. We have on-site spill kits. We do have 24/7 monitoring with cameras. Those are monitored by people in Pennsylvania. So if there's a big issue, they do get to see that as well. And there's, of course, fire extinguishers located around the site and other safety concerns taken into consideration. Does that answer your question?
It does, and it answered my next question, which was all about cameras on site.
Yeah.
So glad to hear that.
So we do have, it varies a little bit per site. We have 20-plus cameras on every site. And again, like I said, they are monitored 24/7, 365 by live personnel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Mako.
Segueing off of those questions, we talked about water quantity. What about water quality? Has that also been reviewed?
Yes, we're providing water quality as well in that basin. It'll have a multi-stage outlet designed for it that will provide the appropriate water quality drawdown, you know, to meet EPA and City of Gahanna requirements. In addition, you know, all the runoff from underneath the fuel canopy, things like that, go through an oil water separator before they ever tie into the storm sewer as well. So that is also part of the project.
Okay, and that was going to be my follow-up question. Well, you know, what type of you know, considerations you have for that? So
Yeah, the way those canopies are designed, what we do is we basically pitch them one direction. We have a trench drain that's just on the one edge of the canopy. So any runoff, you know, that might catch people, drips and things like that from the gasoline and stuff, all that runs into that trench drain. It goes through an oil water separator before it ever goes into the storm sewer.
Okay.
And then the second stage is the detention basin.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring up just an issue of conditional use topic. Did we have Mr. Blackford, did we have a workshop or anything about what we would like to do with this site, or did I miss it?
I don't think so with this particular site previously. Looking at this property, I don't believe we have.
So this is the first time that it's actually been presented to the planning commission?
Yes. I don't recall this site getting any special look as part of like the land use plan or any other type of workshop. This is definitely the first application that I've seen in 8 years on the property.
My concern is we're seeing a pretty well thought out solution to putting this here. And if we turn down the conditional use, we really don't go any further than that. So it seems to me like that would be a very important thing to get approval up front before we got to this point.
Correct, and that's sort of, it's that delicate balance of how much information do we get at this stage, because it's not full engineering, folks don't go through that because they don't know if they can have the use or not. So it's separated processes. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense, sometimes maybe less so, but you're exactly right, and I think that's why they are separated out, is for not wasting all that time and energy on something that might not be approved. But-
Sure.
I just have questions, general questions. Is that
Go.
appropriate? All right, we're not topic-based here. What are the typical hours of operation for Sheets, generally speaking?
They are 24/7.
Okay, thank you. The types of trees, I think we had a, relative to the site plan, there were some various like shade trees, conifers. Do you know what types will be adjacent to both Morse and, I mean, is there specificity? I'm looking for, mainly for height and caliper relative to the tree size adjacent to the road that might screen the property.
I think the details are listed. If you could, Mr. Blackford, maybe zoom in on.
It's gonna be hard to see all the details.
Yep, so the calipers are listed there for the tree species that are adjacent to Morris and Johnstown.
Those are fairly small trees comparatively, 2 inches on caliper for a lot of these. They don't, meaning they don't provide a ton of screening. Okay, thank you. What is the construction of the fueling station? What's the canopy construction?
Yeah, it's all steel construction.
Is it painted steel?
It is.
And then what is the finish on the underside of that canopy?
It's like it's a pan decking like material, white.
It's like
sheet.
a pan panel? Okay. And does there happen to be, I did not capture it in the, or what, didn't see it in the application. I, noted the elevations and things like that. But is there a view from the street of, or rendering or anything of what this would appear, how this might look from Johnstown or Morse?
We do not have a rendering right now from the street view. No.
Okay. Okay, those are some questions. I have comments later.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Greenberg.
Just follow up my last questions, deal with the dumpster. You have the dumpster in, I guess, not in any backyard, but it's in the back on the left side. It shows two dumpsters. Is one of them for recycling, any of the cardboard or any of the materials that come into the Sheets? And do you have any plans at Sheets for sustainability for the users of the facility?
Well, the two dumpsters, they do separate. Is that correct? Trash from recycling. Okay. We can follow up with you as to the answer to that. I'm just not sure how to answer that right now.
Okay, so it'd be good for the corporation to take a look at that. You've got, how many locations are there, Sheets? There's a lot in Central Ohio now.
Yeah, it's in growing, yes. I want to say there's 19 open in Central Ohio.
Just in Central Ohio, and you're across the eastern Pennsylvania and West Virginia and lots of places. So to have a corporate policy on sustainability and how you get, obviously, there's lots of food on the inside of the facility, and I'm a customer, I've been there, it's good, but to have a plan for sustainability would be great, and
Yeah.
we'd like to have that be the first one in Gahanna if you do that. Thanks.
happy to follow up with you on that information too.
Thank you. Mr. Mago?
Another general question, was this what's being proposed here, is this going to be similar to, in terms of scope and size, similar to the other locations here in Central Ohio?
Yeah, very similar, actually. Sheets tries to use a very prototypical store footprint, so yeah, it'll be very similar to the other stores you've seen.
Okay. And is that also going to be true for the inside of the store?
Yeah, very, very prototypical type stores, so there's not a lot of variation at all.
Thank you.
So a quick discussion about this monument sign. So the city recommends, not recommending, I guess, the variance 5-foot setback. So I guess my first question is, what's the distance from the curb to the end of the sidewalk? Any measurements on that?
I do not know that exact measurement. We took a measurement from the curb to the right-of-way. I believe the sidewalk on Morris Road is probably close to 5 feet off of the curb, I would say. But from Morris Road, from the curb to the right-of-way is approximately 45 feet.
From the, I'm eyeballing this, but from our site plan, the existing sidewalk appears to be about 5 feet behind the existing back curb. Our sign is much further back. It's behind the right-of-way. It's at least another 15 feet away from that sidewalk. That's on Morse Road.
So you're telling us that the sign will be 20 feet off Morse Road?
Roughly, yes.
So Mike, explain the variance. The variance, we're asking for a variance of 5 feet instead of 10 feet, but the 5 feet is really from the...
From the right-of-way,
From the
not
right-of-way, not from the real, not from the street.
Pavement, correct. It's not from pavement, it's from the right-of-way, which I believe the thoroughfare plan does call for additional right-of-way on Morse Road, and that's like a long-term vision in that. And again, just with the frequency of traffic out there, like we heard testimony, there's a lot of walkers and bikes, and I think there's increase. It's just a little bit of a safety concern, but it's not like some other corridors where it's right on the roadway. There is more, like they said, there is more green space between the actual pavement and the sign.
So at some future point, the road could get raw. Let's say we approve this variance and the sign now is 20 feet off the road, 15 feet off the sidewalk. With Morse Road, at some point in time, could get widened. It's not in the plans as of right now out there. But then the monument sign becomes within 5 feet of the roadway.
It could. I mean,
It could.
I think that's part of that long-term vision of the thoroughfare plan, is that additional right-of-way would be necessary, again, with some of the development coming out there. And once the sign's there, it's pretty
there.
much, yeah, it's pretty much there. But again, they bring up valid points that, where it's a right in, right out. But again, there's a lot of, I believe that with some of the multifamily in this area, and that's under construction, and some of the uses, that there's going to be an increase in pedestrian and bicycle traffic. So not all the traffic is going to be on the road, it's going to be in the sidewalk areas as well. And just again, any type there's an obstruction for vision, whether it's a sign or shrubs or something like that, it's just, better to be safe than the alternative.
As my
That's
colleague,
just staff's
Mr.
2
Wester
cents.
says, you put it there, they'll hit it. Mr. Hicks?
Of the two monument signs in question, C1 and C2, which one is the Morse Road sign?
C1. would be
C1 is Morse Road, C2 is Johnstown Road? Thank you.
So let's have that same conversation. So Morse Road today will be 20 feet off the road, 15 feet off the sidewalk roughly. What happens on Johnstown Road? Same? Is that sign gonna be 20 feet off the road?
Johnstown Road, again, the sidewalk is approximately 6 feet behind the back of curb. You've got a 5-foot walk there, so you're at 11 feet. And then we are approximately another 8 feet behind that, so 19 feet or 19, 20 feet behind.
19, 20 feet from today's existing pavement.
Correct.
And how tall are these monument signs? 6.5 feet tall. So tall enough to block the view of a biker, walker.
Correct.
Driver.
Staff's opinion, yes.
Okay.
And I believe the access on Johnstown Road is left or right as opposed to Morse Road. So a little bit different traffic in and out between Morrison and Johnstown.
And just to address the comment previously about Moore's Road widening, Sheets would be willing to move that sign if the right-of-way was extended, of course.
I assume that would be for both sides.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
since we're talking about signs, is it Sheets' position that as a wayfinding monument sign, to comply with our code, it would be too far back to serve its purpose? Or what's the reasoning for requesting the variance to the setback in our code?
Yeah, well, so there's two reasons. There's a fence proposed out here, and part of this is part of New Albany Company's development standards. Johnstown Road, you can see the fence, well, not now, but you can.
I can't see it.
So that monument sign is right against that fence. And so that fence is actually, actually pretty keeping in character with the rest of the developments. The barn that's across the street from Johnstown Road there has very similar fence with the sign out front there. So that, and then yes, I mean, certainly visibility. The distance that, we are off of Morse Road, no one would see that sheet sign until you were on top of it. So. And so the sign won't be in front of that white fence. There will be a new white fence behind that. So we're talking another probably 15 feet behind the white fence that you see there on the left side of that entrance.
Does this white fence stay?
That white fence, yeah, it actually, if you could pull up the site plan again, it comes across the site east-west, and then it curves into the development.
And your monument sign will be just in front of the white fence.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you see there that sort of dotted line right there, that is the new fence line. So we're maintaining the existing fence line and then warping it back in toward the site so we have room to put our sign in front of the fence. Same scenario on Johnstown Road. That fence is there. We're proposing, or I don't know if actually the fence is not there on Johnstown Road. It is on the adjacent properties. We have to continue it, and we're proposing to bend it in so we have room to put the sign in front of the fence.
And is there a fence on Johnstown Road too? Looks like it, same dotted line
The
there.
fence on Johnstown Road stops at the property to our east, and we have been requested to extend that fence across our frontage.
So if we did not approve that variance, there's really nowhere to put the monument sign.
Or we have to move the fence further back.
You have to move the-
which, NACO is not in favor of, who has design review over this area as well.
Because they own the 3 parcels
Correct.
today. Okay. Mr. Greenberg?
Mr. Chair, just a question. You just said you got approval about, and they've asked you to extend the fence. Who is they and who gave approval?
So this is, we're purchasing the property from the New Albany Company, and the site is encumbered by their development standards.
And they've approved what you've presenting to us tonight?
Well, yes.
Okay,
Because they own the land right now.
understood. I just wanted to be on the record so we understood where that was coming from.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of item CU-0009-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Hicks on the conditional use. Do I have a second?
Second, Chewbacca?
Second by Mr. Shapaka. Any discussion? Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of the conditional use application. As I drive out of town heading northeast to my work in Johnstown, I don't really have an opportunity to get gas until I get to New Albany. And I happen to go to the Sheets there on Johnstown Road, and in Smith's Mill. If to get gas, I'd have to do it either at Hamilton Road and Havens Corners or further up Hamilton Road. So the having a gas station at this location it fills a need for citizens that travel out of town to the northeast. So I'll be in support of the use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Mr. Chair, I will not be in support of this application. Frankly, I'm upset that the information that we received and we're going to vote on is inaccurate and incomplete. It's not that I'm opposed to a gas station at that location. It's the fact that, again, I don't know what I'm voting on with reference to a drawing, to the information that was provided. Generally, those drawings will be used for construction. I don't know what we're going to build there. I won't be in support of this. I have other reasons written here, but for me, the overall application, the incompleteness, and the inaccuracy of it is upsetting.
Thank you, Mr. Wester. Mr. Shabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also finding myself not in support of the conditional use. Unlike Mr. Hicks, I think that the conditional use is a special need. Everybody that's there now just travels a little further down the road and hits a gas station. And then the 24/7 in that area, it's being at the border of all the residences. I think the sensitivity used with the lighting and all the landscaping is good, but just the use overall, I'm not in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shabaka. Mr. Soriano.
Mr. Chair, I also will not be in support of the conditional use. I actually do not think a fueling station at this location is compatible. So I think for me, when I look at the criteria for conditional use, which has to do with negative impacts on in this area, I think they'll have significant undesirable effects, namely just I know the gentleman, traffic engineer, referenced capturing existing traffic. And so, should that be the case, I still think that there is going to be an increased amount of ingress and egress out of the site that currently doesn't exist. I'm really concerned about the peak hours and just the proximity to the roundabout, which already gets backed up at peak hours. I think the lighting and signage are related to the type of use that it is. So I don't fault the developer or the development or Sheets for kind of representing their standards in terms of what needs to be there to make the business successful. I just don't think those things are compatible with this specific instance. So, if you look at the character or the development trajectory for the surrounding area, there's no precedent for trying to understand materials because there isn't a canopy, a steel-supported canopy. There isn't any of the type of things that we see in this development plan. So, for that and a number of reasons, I won't be supporting the conditional use.
Thank you, Mr. Soriano. And I will comment also, I also live very close to here. When we talk to any of our neighbors, they are adamantly opposed to this. This is, in my mind, not the appropriate use for this location. I know the location's been vacant land for some time, but this is not a location with neon signs, 24-hour business, traffic in and out all hours of the day. I don't find that this type of business is appropriate for this parcel of land here. A mile to the west, perfect. But right here, I struggle with it. I've struggled with it from the day that I heard of the proposal. So I will also not be in support.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Wester.
One other comment I had written down for myself does not fit with the character of the neighborhood. It's residential. There's a school there, residents. And I think about 11 o'clock, the streets roll up. I'm not sure.
1 o'clock. One time, but-
24-hour, 7 operation, 365. That doesn't happen there.
And with that, clerk, can we call the roll?
Hicks,
Yes.
Shephaka,
No.
Greenberg,
No.
Mako,
No.
Soriano,
No.
Tomarkin,
No.
Wester.
No.
Motion fails. I would also like to note that we received a letter from a resident, Gail Hayes, which we will add into the record, who was, had many concerns about the project. Let me ask, with the no vote on the conditional use, should we move forward with votes on the other things, or is there no reason to do that?
There's no reason without the conditional use to vote on the final development plan and the other applications.
Okay,
Without the use, can't approve site plan.
nothing else is to be approved. So motion does not carry. With that, we will move on to the agenda to unfinished business. We have none. New business, we have none. Official reports. Mr. Roth.
No official report at this time, Mr. Chair.
Director of Planning.
Regrettably, I also do not have an official report.
City Council Liaison.
I can say no report because we met last week, and Monday was a fifth Monday, so there was no council meeting since Planning Commission last met. Thank you.
Chair has nothing to say. Mr. Hicks, CIC, we did not ask you about CIC at our last meeting, so you can double up on us here.
Yeah, nothing to report. The next meeting in November will be the third Tuesday. So nothing to share.
Thank you. Madam Mayor?
Well, I want to commend Planning Commission because this afternoon, the Ohio Gastro project that you approved at your last meeting appeared in Columbus Business First. And the Gahanna Middle School East project that you approved is in this week's paper that just came out this afternoon. So, thank you again for your good work. Things are happening here. And I would also note that we I signed the paperwork for the note for the $8.5 million note for the purchase of 825 Tech Center Drive, and we hope to be closing on that next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll see what they put in the paper next week about sheets. And correspondence and action, we have none other than the correspondence on the Sheets project. And poll the members for comments.
I just have a comment relative to the Sheets application that we heard tonight, and just recognizing, to Mr. Blackford as well, the amount of time and effort that goes into reviewing, both from our engineering staff, our planning staff, our development staff. It does not sit lightly, certainly when we have to look and make difficult decisions around whether, something is compatible, especially in a condition like this, and understanding the great lengths that their development team has gone through. I fundamentally don't have any issue with the establishment itself. It's just, as I noted in the comments around the motion, it just doesn't seem compatible. So I just wanted to recognize the amount of work that goes into reviewing, and just let staff and know that it's not taken lightly as we review it.
Thank you. Mr. Mayo.
I also want to kind of echo those sentiments to staff. Again, in my day job, I'm sitting in your chair, and I've had many a vote go against me. So I just want to recognize your hard work on this, the presentation you give on this, and really anything that we see here is always well done and very, very thorough. But this was a tough one, and I get with conditional uses, they are kind of tricky. And like you said, it is a balancing act. But knowing that area, I go through there regularly, it was a bit much. But again, that should not be a reflection on you and your work. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shepakin?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would just like to say that the conditional use just kind of threw me off, but, I mean, I think Sheets does an excellent job with their product and how they present it. I mean, landscaping plan, so I was pretty much in favor if, I'm only one vote. So if it would have passed through, I was pretty much in favor with everything that they had presented, except for the sign along Johnstown, because I think that their product is good.
I will add, as a former retailer, Sheets is known as the best gas operator in the nation. They really are. Doesn't mean, and you know, they didn't bring up how many locations they have, but it's in the hundreds, probably pushing towards 1,000. But that does not mean that this location was the best location for a gas station. Mr. Hicks? Or we'll finish with Mr. Wester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Shepakin made a comment during the question or the discussion phase about this would have been a good project for a workshop. That this is a great example of why. I disagree, but that's why we discuss these things. Because to your point, Mr. Tamarkin, it is a good company. I think we might have, but anyway, the decision has been made. But this is definitely a situation where future applicants should consider bringing or proposed development before the commission as a workshop to get to judge the temperature of the commission before going through the process of the applications. The last comment I'll make is this coming Tuesday is Election Day. Please, if you haven't already, get out and vote. Thank you.
I'd like to again comment and commend Mr. Blackford. In fact, all of the city staff. When you get a submittal of this size, there's considerable work put in to evaluate it. And then when something comes in at the last minute, you know, poor planning on someone's part doesn't create an emergency on mine. I've practiced that for 50 years. Some people learn it, some don't. You know, but I certainly respect the time Mr. Blackford, the city engineer, and others put in evaluating this. And then to be surprised with a full access signal here being part of that traffic plan. Sheets may be a good gas operator, but I have to look at the professionalism in that submittal. And maybe I hold myself to a high standard as a professional engineer. But again, thank you to the city and the city staff for doing the work that was required.
Thank you, Mr. Wester. Mr. Greenberg?
I would like to echo about the city staff and great amount of work that they had to put on this project. And I want to thank my colleagues because I think hearing the issues discussed from everybody's perspective was very helpful as we move forward in our discussions tonight. So thanks to all of you as well. And you, Mr. Chair, you ran a nice meeting.
Thank you. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.